to stare at the ceiling and think about all the reasons for doing what she was about to do. But no, she had to go home. Finn and Eden were waiting for her. She had made her decision, and so she picked up the last box and carried it downstairs, her arms sore from a weekend of packing and cleaning the old house. She locked up and then squeezed the box into the trunk of her car. Only the workshop was left. She walked around it for what must have been the dozenth time. It was such an ordinary building on the outside, white clapboard with only one door and a small square window. It had sat there in their front yard, just off the gravel driveway, for as long as she could remember. She'd never been allowed to enter it. "It's nothing that would interest you," Maeve would say. "Just a desk and a chair and a few books. I'm entitled to a little privacy." When she was 15, Cedar had tried to break into the workshop with one of her friends, but Maeve discovered them, and Cedar had never seen her in such a rage. Cedar was grounded for a week, and when she was finally allowed out, she discovered that her friend had suddenly moved to the city. After that, whenever Cedar was tempted to try again, she'd find herself remembering an urgent test that needed to be studied for, or a drawing that she'd been meaning to work on. But now she knew better. She finished her circuit around the outside and stopped in front of the door, which refused to open. She knew now there must be some sort of spell on it, and that whatever was inside had something to do with Maeve's secret life as a druid. But now, Maeve was dead, and whatever secrets she still held were buried with her. Cedar rattled the doorknob, knowing it wouldn't work. She had tried to get in several times since Maeve's death 3 weeks ago. She had brought a locksmith out, but his tools had broken on the first attempt, and then he'd been too busy to try again. She'd tried to break the window with a crowbar, but it hadn't even scratched the glass. A curtain covered the window, and she could not see inside except for a small ragged space in the corner. But even then all she could see was dust and darkness. She had asked Finn to help her, but he had just warned her not to drive herself crazy. Some mysteries were best left unsolved, he had said, and meddling in the affairs of druids never turned out particularly well. She glanced at her watch and knew she had to get going. But she hated the thought of not knowing this side of her mother. She felt certain that if she could only get inside Maeve's private sanctuary, all of her questions would be answered. She placed her hand on the rough wood of the door. "Open," she whispered, feeling foolish. She glanced over at the tree under which Maeve was buried, then turned back to the door. "Mom?" she whispered. "It's okay now. You can let me in. Let me in." Nothing happened. Cedar kicked at the door in frustration, and the wood creaked. Encouraged, she kicked it again. Then she took several steps back and flung herself shoulder first into the door. She was not expecting the explosion. A loud crack like a rifle shot ruptured the silence of the evening, and a force like a hot wind sent Cedar flying backward through the air. She landed hard on the gravel driveway amid a torrent of red sparks. Her head hit something hard, and she felt the darkness close in on her. When she opened her eyes again, something was obscuring her view. She could see a rim of light in her peripheral vision. It surrounded the object in front of her like a halo. She recognized it as the porch light. The sky was black. Night had fallen. She started to sit up and winced as a sudden burst of pain shot through her head. "Wait," the object said. "Let me help you." She felt herself being gently lifted into a sitting position. The world swam around her, and she closed her eyes, waiting for the pain in her head to subside. After a moment, she opened her eyes again and blinked a few times. Gradually, the object in front of her came into focus. It was a man.